Welcome to Systemize Your Success. I'm Dr. Steve Day. AI is the hot topic at the moment, and we are using it massively on our business to help my team to produce better quality copy for pretty much every aspect of our business, whether it be our marketing, repurposing content, writing emails, communicating with clients, updating our courses, updating our recruitment process and our recruitment system. It's all being helped through the use of AI. And up until relatively recently, that was all done through ChatGPT. Now, ChatGPT is improving its interface, but up until recently, it's been pretty clunky and required quite a lot of knowledge and expertise to get the most out of it. Now, even now, you still need to be able to understand how to write really good prompts to be able to get the outputs that you really actually need that don't sound like they're being written by an AI. And that requires skill and training and practice. However, there are some brilliant apps out there that have done all the hard work for you. And I want to share one app with you today called CastMagic. I've discussed this briefly in a previous episode, but I think it's one of those apps that we've started using more and more, and not just for producing copy for, say, our podcast episodes, but you can use it for videos, you can use it for meetings, for sales calls. You can even actually use an app on your phone to actually transcribe data or record directly into it, and then use CastMagic to then create notes and things but off the back of it. It's an incredibly powerful tool with loads of great features and more features coming out all the time. You can integrate it with loads of things like Zapier and YouTube and Reels and RSS and all the rest of it. And so it's incredibly powerful way of actually not just creating, but also publishing content with minimal effort. Today is a deep dive into that.
So the question is this: how do entrepreneurs like us, who don't have an endless supply of cash, how do we leverage the best apps, virtual assistants, automation tools, and systems to scale our businesses, increase our profits, and have more time to do what we love to do each day? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answer. My name's Dr. Steve Day, and this is Systemize Your Success.
Okay, so CastMagic. This was an app that we started using about 5 months ago. We were testing it for a little while, and then we've actually started using it for every single piece of content that goes out from us. It helps us to create all of the copy, whether that's for the web pages, for the associated article, for actually creating associated podcast, for creating entirely separate blogs in different styles, for copywriting for the Instagram posts, for our keywords, for our Twitter feeds, for everything that we're trying to actually produce. The show notes, for example, everything is produced now by CastMagic. And it does so without any expertise needed at all. It's also, we can also use it for analyzing other things like sales calls. And I'm going to go through this now in detail by showing on my screen what I'm actually talking about. So if you're listening to the actual podcast version, you might want to listen or re-listen to this and watch the video alongside it if you find it valuable. You shouldn't need to get the information from this. I'm going to talk you through and explain what I'm showing on my screen. But if you do want to see what I'm actually showing you, then go to www.systemizeyoursuccess.com, find the episode page for this episode, and on there you will then find me actually showing my screen as I'm talking through this. Okay, so what I'm showing on my screen now, I'm going to describe it for anyone on the podcast. What I'm showing on my screen now is our list of all the recordings that we've uploaded into one of our channels. So CastMagic allows you to set up different channels for different types of media that you're producing or different uses for it. Or if you've got multiple podcasts, like I'm just about to launch a new podcast called System Driven Marketeer in the not too distant future. So we have a separate channel for that to keep everything in one place and keep it all organized. And these channels can be for various different reasons, different functions, I was going to say. And so, for example, I'm just going to set up a test one here. And then we're going to then save space. And on here, you can then pick a number of different types of uses that are already in there. And they actually are bringing out new uses, I believe, all the time. The ones that you can pick from at the moment are podcasts, meetings, custom discovery, course and webinar, YouTube, coaching, sales calls, and custom as well. All of these give you different standard outputs. And so, for example, for the podcast, which is the one we primarily use it for, we get titles, speaker bios, timestamp overview, key topics and bullets, reel scripts, newsletter, which is the email, threads for Instagram, keywords, an introductory an introduction, so to actually the script to record your intro to the episode you just recorded, because if you are a content producer and you're like me and you forget what you said 5 minutes ago, actually remembering or summarizing everything you just said in a short, concise way can be a bit challenging sometimes. And so that actually gives you the script based on what you've just said. It only takes a few minutes to process it, so you can literally do it in one sitting. It also gives you key questions asked. It also has quotes and hooks and timestamps for all those things. So you can put that into YouTube or onto your webpage so people can find relevant pieces of the information that they want to actually get back to. Also, it does LinkedIn posts and tweet threads. And this is just for the podcast. If we go on to, say, the coaching calls, you have a different set of prompts that is already scripted for you, and it'll produce this output. So for coaching calls, it's a 1-sentence summary, timestamp overview, quotes from the session, a session workout sheet, an analogy. So it even comes up with an analogy to describe what the coaching call was about. So it works really well if the coaching calls are around like one major topic. It will then create a succinct analogy to talk about that in a way different from what you described it, which may make your clients actually understand it better. You get goals and objectives, keywords, key session themes, key topics and bullets, questions and follow-up. So each type of channel that you set up has a different profile of the different prompts, and also the ability to create custom prompts for each of these as well after you've set it up. So if you think, oh, I want to add a different output from the same media, then actually you can create a custom prompt to do that within the app without having to then take the transcript, put it into ChatGPT and then run it all through there, which is what we ended up doing for a while until we started using this. Now, the main reason we've used it up to date is for our podcast. And we have now all of our podcasts going through this. And what this allows us to do is to upload a podcast. And from there, we then get all of that stuff I've just described. And it basically writes it all for you without having to do anything, without having to think about prompts and how to make it, in your own voice, etc. You basically get to get the output from this, and then you can tweak it using the custom prompts afterwards as well if you want to. But the actual general output that's produced is pretty good. We have actually tweaked some bits. For example, the voice of the email, I want it to be in a specific way that tells the story behind it, because most of what I share is about problems and challenges that I've faced, that I've overcome, or my clients have faced and overcome. And I want to tell it from that story perspective. So in those cases, I've actually created a custom prompt to allow us to do that and to structure it in a standardized way. So when we're sending the emails out, they're familiar and they have the same sort of structure and style across each time we do it. But what this allows us to do is to get huge amounts of ideas and also fast track a lot of the process of going through like what the keywords we should be using here. So it gives you a list of all the main keywords, which then if you want to, you can then run through a tool to be able to find what the highest hitting or high searching keywords, but you've got that list of keywords relevant to the podcast episode. So when you put them on your site, you can then get those keywords, and with the transcript there as well, it'll then get great SEO onto your site with minimal effort. As I said, it gives you the introduction. So in this one, for example, this was a podcast episode I did a little while ago about hiring a marketing manager. And it says, hey, I'm Dr. Steve Day. Today, we're going to be diving into a topic that many entrepreneurs and business owners grapple with: how to hire a social media or marketing manager. In this episode of Systemize Your Success, I'll be sharing my insights on when and how to bring in a marketing manager, as well as the lessons I've learned from my own experience. It then goes on and on, like with really good copy. I mean, I'd be happy to use this. I didn't in this case. It's actually something, the intro is something I've only really sort of started taking note of recently, because I've previously been doing the intro before the episode and trying to second guess sometimes what I'm going to say, because sometimes I sort of wing these episodes and just talk from experience rather than having a script. In fact, I never script any episode I ever record. So for me, it's a little bit challenging to think about everything I might talk about in the episode before I've actually talked about it. But now we're going to switch up the production. So I'm going to do the main episode. We're going to upload it to CastMagic, and then I'm going to record the introduction afterwards, which will make it a lot easier. And also, I believe, give a much better summary of the content in my introductions, which will hopefully increase the number of people that continue to listen to the whole episode because they go, yes, this is what I want to hear. This is what I want to learn about. So therefore they continue listening. And there's not this mismatch sometimes that maybe I've talked about something intro that doesn't either match up with what's in the episode exactly, or that I missed out some key things from the intro that I then talked about later in the episode when a new idea came to mind. We then got timestamp overviews, which literally go through and timestamp some key parts in there so people can then click on those things and then it'll jump to it. If you have that put into something like YouTube, you can use that to actually allow people to jump to different parts. The technicality side of that, I think, is pretty easy. It's not me that does that side of stuff. It then goes through the key topics and bullets of the entire episode. This is great for your show notes. It like gives people a whole summary of the episode without giving them the detail. So people are still needing to actually listen to it to get the detail, but it gives them that summary, and also really good for people doing Google searches when you've got lots of different key pieces of information from that particular piece of content on there. You've then got, again, the clip finder. You've got real scripts. So literally it goes through and gives you the actual. So I'll read this out to you if you're listening on the podcast, but it says, camera fades into you standing in front of a backdrop with a podcast logo. Hey, entrepreneur fam. I just hosted an awesome episode of my podcast, Systemize Your Success, all about hiring content marketeers. And it cut to a montage of key points from the episode. We talked about the importance of having the right strategy and building brand guidelines for your content. I shared my personal experience with hiring agencies versus building a personal brand trust. Plus, I gave some valuable advice on freeing up your time to focus on finding and hiring a perfect marketing manager, on and on. And it goes, camera fades out to the podcast logo. So it actually gives you the whole script and also the information for the video editor to know how to actually produce the content. So I think this is pretty smart and pretty good. It's then got a LinkedIn post. It's got a newsletter, which is basically an email going out to our audience. It then gives you a tweet thread. So it gives you 8 or 10 different tweets to basically put out about that episode. So you don't have to think about all that, even with the hashtags added on there as well. You then got key questions, which obviously you can use that to then prompt further thoughts for content as well going forward. You've got threads for Instagram. It's got post 1, post 2, post 3, post 4. It even gives the emojis to put on it to make it, and the hashtags as well, to make it super easy, literally for your team just to copy and paste these things in. It's then got a description giving the overview of the whole episode. And then I've got some, these are custom prompts, that I've actually created. So we've got a couple of different descriptions here. Key takeaways, short form emails, and emails. These are all things that we've actually created. So we've actually created these last few prompts to further give us more on-brand content for the specific things. So I wanted to have a email, for example, that told a story, my story about hiring, in this instance, a marketing manager. But it could be the story about whatever it is, as I mentioned earlier. And so I created a prompt here. And let's go to this edit prompt. You can see I created a prompt, which basically then gives a bit of information. This is one that I created. It's not, I wouldn't use this as verbatim. I'm not a ChatGPT prompt expert or a AI prompt expert. But this is just a one I was messing around with just to get some ideas when I was actually having a play with it. So here I've just said, like, act as our copywriter, write an email in under 200 words. Do not reference the podcast directly, as you do not say in this latest episode. Write the email in first person, tell the story. The style and tone should be conversational. Avoid using rhetoric questions, etc. We've then gone on to actually create a more detailed version of this, where we're actually structuring the email. So this is an email that I updated to that prompt. This is me just messing around with prompts, really. And then I've got at the top, I've got context and guidance for the prompt. So I said, act as the podcast host and write a 50 to 75 word podcast email that will compel the reader, see the avatar below for context, to listen to this podcast episode. Write the email in first person, etc., etc. And then I've put a structure in it. In the first paragraph, tell the story and challenges the author faced that led him to look for the solution. In the next paragraph, discuss any common beliefs the reader might have that may lead them to making the same mistakes. And so here, we've basically structured the email using a generic prompt that can be applied to any episode that we do, that will actually give us a similar sort of cadence for our emails going out and cover the main points in the way that we want to. And again, you can obviously tweak this to your heart's content. And if you've got something that's good at ChatGPT, they'll be able to make this even better. The same prompts you can then share across each of the channels that you're using, and that will then add that same prompt to the output every time you use the CastMagic to create your output for the particular piece of content that you're putting in there. We also have used it for coaching sessions as well. So for example, there was a coaching session I did with one of my clients a while back, and we're talking about management. And this is a great output from here. So we've got all the things like key themes, session quotes, all that sort of stuff. What I found really useful in this part was the session worksheet. So things that person can actually do to apply the concepts discussed in the coaching session and actually reflect on the work that we've talked about. Key questions asked are really useful to remind somebody of what the content was. And then here's that analogy that I mentioned earlier. So this is a coaching session I had about how to be a better manager, basically, and about how important it is to focus on performance and to also be really mindful of how you communicate with your staff in order to actually get the best out of them. And this analogy here, I'm just going to read a bit of it, just if you listen to the podcast, just to get a feeling for how smart this app is, or this AI is. If I'm honest, like some of the analogies are a bit samey, so we've used it a few times. It likes using the same type of story or same subject, I've noticed a couple of times, but it's quite cool. Let me read it out to you. Imagine you're a master chef running a busy kitchen. Your goal is to ensure that every dish leaves your kitchen is perfect. Now, imagine one of your sous chefs, let's call her Lucy, is known for her lightning fast chopping skills, but struggles with accuracy. She often slices vegetables unevenly or forgets to add essential spices to the dish. To help Lucy improve, you decide to take on a more managerial role and coach her on accuracy. You explain that being fast is great, and just like Lucy's chopping speed, but to create exceptional dishes, precision is key. You emphasize that it's more important to be accurate than fast. You introduce the concept of the feedback model, which is your secret recipe to providing guidance. Just like the recipe, it tells you the exact measurements and the steps to follow. The feedback model provides a structured way to communicate suggested improvements. And it goes on and on. But I really like this, that it basically tells the concepts that I was talking about, which is about how to improve someone's accuracy in spite of, in fact, being very fast, but we need to actually improve this person's ability for attention to detail. But also I talked about the feedback model and about how to use that to standardize the way you give feedback. And it brings all of that into this analogy, but tells it in a different way, which I think is pretty smart. And this, again, I could use this. I can take the same prompt, this analogy prompt, and have this in our podcast. And we can actually create stories from any content that actually, in an analogy format, which is actually a really nice way to try and explain things sometimes. So again, it's just like super out the box, nothing prompt, there's nothing edited about this. It's literally what is produced. And then this is another key thing I loved about the coaching aspect of this, which the follow-up email. So it basically gave the 5 takeaways from it, a little bit of a fun fact, and then just basically also compliments the person on their progress so far. And then the key goals and objectives from the meeting for her to then be able to focus on the outcomes to improve her business going forward. Now, this is all completely out of the box. I've not done anything to create any new custom prompts on this particular one. So it's got incredible, I think, depth or breadth of ideas of how you can use the transcript basically from a meeting, there's actually a sales call one as well, which goes, I'm not going to show that in detail because of privacy, but they've got a sales call which goes to the business objectives, the challenges, the calls to action, etc. So it basically analyzes the sales call and produces the follow-up email, etc. for that sales lead as well. That's not something we're using directly in our business at the moment, but it's definitely something I'm keeping my eye on for opportunities to learn that to use that going forward. Another couple of cool things. I mentioned this before. There's an iOS app, which you basically then can transcribe into it. I've not used that because I don't have an iPhone, but then it will then record all of your notes and upload them directly into the app, so you can have it all in one place. And then you can, I presume, it will then summarize that And then, for example, if you're doing a social media post, then it will actually then create your social media from the back of it. For example, if you're like just on the fly recording, oh, I've got a great idea for content, then you can put it into that and it'll automatically start processing it without you even having to upload anything. So again, that's something that I think would be super useful. Can't promise it is because I've not used it, but it's definitely something I'm going to keep my eye on if they bring out an Android version, which I'm sure they will in the near future. They're adding these things all the time. So the other couple of things just to know are it's got integrations with YouTube, so you can link it. I think it's that higher pay plans have integration to YouTube, but you can link it directly to your YouTube, so it'll drag your content directly in. You can then set up RSS feeds as well, so it will actually you can actually publish it out from. It'll pull in your episodes from that feed. So if you've already got content in your RSS feed, you can then pull in episodes without having to upload them directly into it. It's got Zapier connections as well, so you can do whatever you want with it with regards to Zapier as well. So that is CastMagic. I think it's one of those tools which I didn't know this kind of thing existed. Well, it didn't really exist quite some time ago. When I started with ChatGPT, I thought I was going to have to like really get into ChatGPT on a big level to be able to actually get the most out of it. But there's cool apps like this out there that basically package up an incredibly useful number of tools that allow you to increase the speed at which you can get decent quality content created. Now, is this absolutely perfect? Would I use this in its entirety without ever having anyone look at it? In some cases, I may do. I probably still want to have someone with some sort of level of competency in copywriting just looking over some stuff for now, at least until I get really confident with it. But a lot of it, we just copy and paste. And some of it's just about the ideas and the speed at which it produces this stuff. And then it's just about tweaking a few little bits. Like, we can't expect, I don't think, AI to replace our marketing teams entirely in the near future, but the amount of work we now get done in the same amount of time as we had before is massive. And we're now, for example, I've wanted to do a blog for my podcast for ages. We just didn't have the capacity in the team to do it. With this and other apps that we're using around it, we're actually being able to then start actually producing far more content in the same amount of time that we're spending before with the same team as well. So that's it. That's my review of CastMagic. It is one of those apps where I got it not knowing if I'd use it. I dabbled with it for a little bit and then actually started using it in anger and bringing the team in and getting them involved in using it. And we just started using it more and more. And I see us using this going forward a hell of a lot. So if you're looking for an app to help you effortlessly repurpose your content into multiple different streams, multiple different channels, loads of ideas and keywords and title ideas and all that stuff that obviously can take quite a lot of time and skill in order to produce, then I think it's an absolutely awesome app. So check it out. There'll be a link on my podcast page on www.systemizeyoursuccess.com. There'll be a link to get this app as well. That may be an affiliate link. I will let you know if it is. If not, it's just a link to the app. I'm not really about affiliates, but I'm just about promoting cool stuff. And go on there, check it out. The video will be on there, which I've just been talking through or showing on my screen as I've been talking through if you are listening on this podcast. And so, yeah, check it out. See what you think. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you do use it already, what your thoughts? Is there anything that could be improved? Is there anything you're using it for that I've not shown now, which I should be aware of? I'd love to hear your thoughts. And yeah, if you do end up using it because of this, let me know. Be interested to know what you do with it. All right. Have a great day. Thanks so much. Bye.